I never saw that. Oh, she's frowning.
Good morning. My name is Alex Cotter. My pronouns are he and him, and I am a member of the Worship and Music Committee, and I will be your worship associate this morning. I'm delighted to welcome you here, whether you are visiting this morning or a regular member. Please check with the greeter if you have any questions. Today we acknowledge that we are located in a place that was once the Wampanoag village of Patuxent. We strive to follow their example and be faithful stewards of this sacred land. Our theme for today's service is Listen to the Wisdom of Grandmothers. Our service is recorded. The candles section will be edited out so that we can speak more candidly and personally as a community. This service, as are all our services, will be posted on our Facebook page and on YouTube. We also share our services on local public access television. Our service today is presented by Grandmothers Against Gun Violence. Our service is being filmed by A.Harding. Deb Keller-Wood, Director of Spiritual Enrichment, will be the time for all ages. Today's live music will be offered by Emily Browder Melville, Aaron Finnegan, and Glenn King. Because our services vary from week to week, we suggest that you visit us again to experience the variety of worship that we offer. If you are a visitor, please consider signing the guest book, which is in the foyer, so you may receive our weekly e-blast. Masks are available if you want to wear one during the service. We are, as usual, hosting coffee hour after the service. We invite you to join us for fellowship and refreshments. If you're interested in helping out with coffee hour, please talk with Diane Zola after the service. We always need volunteers. Wherever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are in your journey, let us walk together this hour.
Jewish friends and family, Yom Kippur is being celebrated, and it is a very sad holiday, and it kind of centers around passing on. And the Mourner's Kaddish is something I've said 14 years ago when my mom passed away. We do it intentionally. But since we're talking about gun violence, I thought it would be very appropriate to do the Kaddish. It's going to be in Hebrew, but the insert has what I'm saying in English. Can everybody find this? Yizgadal shebei rabba, v'yama divra kirasei, v'yamlich malchusei, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, v'chayei, t'kol beit Yisrael. Ba-agola, uvisman kariv, v'yamaru, amen. Yeheshvei rabba nevorak, v'yolam wal-mayamaya, yizbarak, v'yishtabak, v'yishpa'am, v'yisramam, v'yisnaseh, v'yisadar, v'yisalav, v'yihalak, shemei dekudisha, barichu, Le'elam min kol rachasa v'shirasa tu shvechasa v'ne'emasa da'amiram b'yama v'yamaru. Amen.
Another insert this morning for our first hymn, which is We Are. So if you turn on the other side of what you just read, We Are, I'd like to invite Glenn and Aaron up. So you see here on the insert that we're going to alternate, all of us singing the chorus together, and then we'll sing the verses. Okay, so we will teach you the chorus. Goes like this.
together the words of our chalice lighting. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law.
This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
Yom Kippur. So much to think about and unpack in this holiday celebrating the Jewish New Year. As we think about it, one of the things that I was always told by my stepmother was it's really important to think of all of the things you've done wrong or the things that you've done to other people that you should be forgiven for. Take a minute and think of something that maybe you didn't really think you should do, but you did. Was it saying something you shouldn't have? Was it not going someplace you know you should have gone? Something in your world that you did wrong. And then think of who you would ask forgiveness of. Is it your family? Or your friends, or work, or do you need to ask forgiveness of yourself? What is there that each of us has done wrong? How many people couldn't decide which one to think about? Yeah, it's tough. And it's not comfortable to think about what we did wrong. We like to think about what we did right. But it's important when we start a new year to look at the wrongs, to acknowledge them, to say them out loud where others can hear, and to ask for forgiveness. Now, as I was trying to think about Yom Kippur, I had a habit of going on the computer and seeing what things pop up. One of them was about Moses carrying the 10 Commandments down from the mountain, seeing people doing wrong, dropping them, letting them break, because he was mad. And then deciding he needed to go back up and get another set. Because these were rules for people to live by so that they wouldn't do wrong. Then there's this other thing. When the kids and I go upstairs, I'm going to be pulling out apples and honey. What does that have to do with figuring out your wrongs and apologizing to people? You have an idea?
I think maybe it's like sour apples and then the honey makes it sweeter.
Ooh, sour apples and we make them sweeter. We'll have to see. So if we think about the wrongs in our world, and we think about owning them going forward, I hope that today on this kind of dark day, that we take some time to think about what we've done that maybe we should apologize for, or something we've done that we need to forgive ourselves for. And now we're going to go learn about apples and honey.
I will let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Oh, okay. So there is no reading, so we're going to move to the video, and I just need a brief moment to bring up the screen so you can see it. Do you need any help, Emily? I don't, thank you, it's super easy.
Oh, thank you, Emily. I didn't think it would affect me this much. We are honored today to have the president of the Grandmothers Against Gun Violence speaking to us today. And I didn't think it would make a big difference to me since I lived nowhere near Sandy Hook. I lived nowhere near any other mass shootings. However, when I moved to where I am today, my neighbor came from Sandy Hook, and both of her children were in those schools. Thank goodness neither of them were hurt, and they were older. However, the experience has marred them for the rest of their lives. And I can't imagine parents of children that were involved. So, it is now my pleasure to introduce Donna Wald for the Cape Cod Grandmothers Against Gun Violence.
Oh. Morning. Now I want to cry after seeing that. So some of my fire and brimstone may not be here. But anyway, we really thank you for having us. Grandmothers Against Gun Violence was founded in 2013, right after Sandy Hook. Our founder, Linda Alhart, was driving home from a holiday celebration when she heard about Sandy Hook on the radio. We also have another grandmother who had children at Sandy Hook. Luckily, they were not injured. And that was when, it was very inspirational. One woman sat down at the kitchen table and gathered all her friends and said, "This will not stand." And if you look back, Moms Demand Action, all those groups were formed right after Sandy Hook with people saying, no more. It was a really hard time. It was a time when no one wanted to talk about gun violence because it was political. It was either not political or not visible enough. Go figure, how could it be not visible enough? We are a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan, inclusive organization that respects the Second Amendment, realizing that gun ownerships come with individual and societal responsibilities. Individuals who are not gun owners also have the right to go about their daily lives free without fear of that gun violence. Our mission is to educate the public on gun violence, collaborate with other like-minded community groups and gun violence prevention groups, and to advocate for common sense gun legislation to reduce gun violence on both the state and federal level. To do that, we have Grandmothers Against Gun Violence in Massachusetts, and we work mainly with Massachusetts, other groups in Massachusetts. And about a year and a half ago, when we were looking at this whole thing, we said, you know, we have a safe state, and it hasn't gotten that way by accident, by the way. People have been working since 1948 for us to have really good gun laws. But we thought, you know, the federal thing has got to happen because there's so many states that are non-compliant. There's states without even background checks. So then we were part of co-founding Grandparents Uniting for Gun Safety, which is a kind of a unique concept. We're still working through it. It's a digital advocacy group. No meetings, no contact, nothing. We just send newsletters and advocacy actions where you can call legislators, do whatever. It's a really interesting model because when you don't have the person-to-person, like we're having right now, it's very tough to do that, but we're excited about it. We have people signing up all across the United States, and it's working. Our activities include Zooms, and we have in-person meetings. We rally once a month, 9 months out of the year at the Hyannis Rotary for gun laws and voting issues sometimes. That's where we met Phyllis. Very excited about that. We have speaking engagements. We exhibit with other like-cause people and organizations. We have a monthly newsletter, and we have a legislative advocacy presence on Facebook and Instagram. So we're out there if you want to find us. I think part of the problem with gun violence is people don't get familiar enough with it because it scares them, as it should. There are 450 million guns in America. That's 1.2 guns for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And what we see is the expected result, which is increasing gun violence impacting everyone in our communities and many beyond who no longer feel safe in their spaces. And let me make this clear, this is not a political issue. This has been declared by the Surgeon General a public health emergency, as well as doctors who have been saying this for years. This is a public health issue. And if we approach it the way we do public health issues, we have a much better chance of solving it through solutions that are based on research. And each category of gun violence is different. A school shooting is different from a shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs parade. And we need to understand that because each type of shooting has its own profile and its own solutions. The gun violence categories we use are homicides and suicides, or self-directed gun violence, and unintentional shootings where a child picks up a firearm and shoots someone. And make it clear we have a huge disparity between the characteristics of urban shootings and rural shootings. They're totally different and require different solutions. The urban shootings are more a cause of social inequities and disparities. So those are two distinct issues. Last year in America, we lost over 45,000 lives to gun violence. 110 people are killed every day by guns. 230 people are shot every day. You're 25 times more likely to be murdered with a gun in this country than are people in other civilized countries. We call us civilized, that's kind of a stretch. And 60% of teens say they worry about experiencing a shooting at their school. The teen suicide rate is escalating, and it's the highest it's ever been. In homicides and suicides among our youth are the highest they have ever been. The leading cause of death between children 0 and 17. Well, that's something we really ought to be proud of. But I'm here today because you have a community, and we are really, I mean, it's a community problem. There's not one of us that could not be touched by this. There's not one of us that can't do something. So we work in community when we address these issues. So you might say, well, who's your community? Well, first of all, our community is the other gun violence prevention groups in the state. The Mass Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence, Moms, Stop Handgun Action. I'm sure you've seen them everywhere. And nationally, every town, Moms Demand Action. I work a lot with the Newtown Action Alliance, which was born and is Sandy Hook. And the Giffords Group. And we work with hate-based people like yourself. In probably the last 2 years, I've been very privileged to speak to a ton of faith-based organizations. And it's so quiet and so peaceful and yet so active. I really love doing it. Our police community, we work extensively with the police community, and I left Phyllis with some brochures for you. We have a safety brochure for guns that addresses suicide, domestic abuse, our red flag laws, and safe storage. We work with the police. I just finished, yes, the 14th police department on the Cape has agreed to hand those out with their, in their firearms process. And that's great because you're right at the point you want to be at when someone owns a gun and is being given their permit. You're right at the point of saying you have to store this safely, and here are the consequences if you don't. We do have a safe storage law in Massachusetts, by the way. We also work with survivors of gun violence. I see them a whole lot when I work nationally. It's heartbreaking. And you wonder how they get up every day after something like that and go out to lead movements. I mean, it's just so inspiring. It's amazing. We hear from doctors. We hear from intervention groups who are working in their communities to try to help after gun violence incidents and to try to make people's lives better within the community so we don't have gun violence incidents. And my big favorites, we work with the legislators, whether they be federal or state. We have some great relationships there, and we have some relationships there which are, you just shake your head and you don't understand. Although this is a tough cause to work on, and sometimes we all have days where we can't even work, but we're continually inspired by the people across the nation who give their time, energy, and financial resources to end gun violence. A great note is we all passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act in June of 2022. That was the first significant gun legislation out of the federal government in 30 years. And that did not come easily. And I am going to tell you a little story about how that came about because it shows you how the legislature works. We could not get that act to move anywhere until the Uvalde shooting. And I'm sure you all remember how horrendous that was. Well, John Cornyn, who's a senator from Texas, we did not have a single Republican vote on that until he said they were going on recess right after Uvalde. And Texas was hot. Texas was very upset about this. We were upset about it. The phones were ringing off the hook in Washington. We were calling all the legislators in Washington. And he said to his people, we're going to get killed when we go home if we don't do something after Uvalde about this gun situation. So they rallied up some people on the other side of the aisle, and they helped to pass the Bipartisan Safety Act. Now, that's kind of sad that we had to lose all those children so that we could get a Bipartisan Safety Act, but we did. It enhanced background checks. It freed up $750 million to support community intervention in red flag laws. It expanded the domestic abuse firearm prohibitions. It clarified who gun sellers are, which was really great. And believe it or not, we never had a gun trafficking law until this bill. Now, when I saw that, I couldn't even believe it. I said, this has to be misinformation. Well, it wasn't. So, I mean, and there was a huge investment in mental health services. And then in their ultimate wisdom, they turned around a year later, this administration, and gave us the Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House. It sits in the White House, and its job is to implement this law. So you can imagine how fast they're running right now. They are running very fast to get all these funds released where they belong before November. And in Massachusetts, I'm very proud. All of us lobbied for 2 and 3 years for your new Firearms Modernization Act, which was passed at the end of July. It updated all our gun laws currently in force, and it was really started to withstand some of the challenges that we're seeing from other states against our state laws, which is really ironic. This bill, and the reason I'm going to focus on this bill is because the gun lobby is trying to repeal it right now. This bill included briefly banning ghost guns, restrictions on carry in open spaces, additions to our red flag laws, updates on the assault weapons ban, deadly firearm modification devices, better inspection of gun dealers, training and testing required for firearms people, and commissions to study gun violence and oversee community intervention programming and funding. It also included looking at emerging technologies and approved data collection and distribution on crime. So what's wrong with that? I mean, it's all safety measures, and it's basically all add-ons to laws we already have. But recently, the gun owners and gun lobby here have decided that they're going to challenge it and put it on the 2026 midterm election ballot as a referendum. So that's something to watch for, because in 2026, the young lobby will try to repeal this bill. Okay. So just when we thought it was safe, now we have even more work to do, but that's sort of the way this goes. And I want to talk briefly about safe storage of guns, because we totally feel that safe storage of guns could well reduce the gun violence deaths in this country to half of what they are. And I'm going to start with suicide. A suicide, in many cases, is an impulsive decision which happens between 5 minutes and 20 minutes. So I don't need to tell you that if there is what we call a means, which is means is the gun, an easy means, it's very likely that it will be used, and it will be used at a 90% fatality rate. So the worst 5 minutes of your life turn into no life if there is a gun unsecured and available. That is why we ask that people secure their guns in a box separate from the ammunition, and that you stay on top of what's happening in your family and with your relatives. Because they are not, I mean, suicides are 3/4 of the gun violence death numbers. And some of them are preventable. I'm not saying if you've suffered long-term your whole life with mental illness, that is going to play into that. Let's say you have a teenager who breaks up with her boyfriend. Worst thing that could happen to her in her life at that point in her life. Because teenagers don't have a big horizon. Most of their stuff, my daughter's a therapist, and she's told me most of their stuff happens right here. She said, so I just want you to know that. Another thing, if you have grandchildren or children that play at other people's houses, everybody thinks this is a tough conversation. You simply need to ask on a play date, do you have any firearms in your house? I'm kind of nervous about that. And how are they stored? Or the child can play at your house. It's not that hard a question. And we make it hard because we don't want to ask it. But we need to ask it. It's just you don't want to be the one responsible when that happens and you didn't ask. Stolen guns, if you leave a gun unsecured, the number one reason to break into a car right now is guns. So if you've got your gun on the floorboard in the back, you're probably going to get your car broken into. And those guns always turn up as crime guns. Always. And they usually turn up as crime guns not more than 2 or 3 months after they're stolen. So it's really important that if you own a gun, or your son-in-law owns a gun, or who's ever owning the guns, that you really have a safe storage method, because it can cause so many problems. Or the school shootings. 78% of the school shootings were shootings where the child, or young adult, got a hold of a gun from his own household or a relative. How does that happen? But, so how can you become involved? In this movement, anything counts. If you're donating, it counts. If you're writing postcards, it counts. If you're calling and nagging your legislators, it really counts. If you're coming to meetings and learning more, it counts. Everything counts, because we should all be in this together. You could join Grandmothers Against Gun Violence. You could join Grandparents Uniting, which I told you about. Federal will send you information, will send you things you can do. You can call your legislators, and everybody's always afraid to call their legislators. And it's really fun, because what you end up with most time is a young clerk, and all you're trying to say is, hey, this bill is coming up, could you please make the senator aware? And a lot of times you get into some really good conversations with those kids. I mean, I have a really good time doing it, and it's quick. I mean, the conversation's like a minute and a half. And it's just to bring the issues to the fore, because those people are really busy. I know we all think they did nothing, but they are nothing. So join something. It's easy. You know, you can get our newsletter for nothing. The other organization, National, doesn't even have dues. We're just hoping to survive until we get something done out there. So why are we hopeful? Because you guys are obviously people of hope. The conversation around gun violence is bigger than it's ever been. When we first started, you couldn't get anybody to even say the words. And now it's on CNN, it's everywhere. I mean, it is everywhere. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's a little more prominent in this election, but there are reasons for that as well. The media coverage is expansive and favorable, other media. Activism is growing at an incredible rate. Every time I go on the national calls, I see more groups on there than I saw before. And the young people are stoked, and they should be, because they're the ones, hate to be this blunt, they're the ones that are gonna get shot at. They're the ones who are gonna be raising families. They are the ones that are gonna inherit this mess, even though the rest of us are trying to lessen the mess. And the current administration has been amazing. They have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Executive orders, executive acts, the bipartisan law. So all that is not for naught, you know? I mean, the conversation's up, it's good. And the legislators, for the first time, are accountable. They know that when a bill comes up, that their phones are gonna ring off the hook. They know that we're making a lot of their constituents go to their home meetings and pin them to the wall on gun violence. There is no place to hide for them. The gun manufacturers are having it really tough now because people have figured out how to sue them on almost any law possible. So they are not having a really good time of it right now. And right now we're trying to pass a law to repeal the immunity they have. They have a lot of immunity as a manufacturer that other manufacturers do not have. We're working on that really hard. We are only 10 co-sponsors short of bringing it to the House floor for what that's going to mean. And we've been calling on that for 40 days now. And the gun lobbies are not having such a hot time of it either because they've always kind of ruled the roost. Now we know who they are, we know what they do. And even organizations that seem to be just organizations have this underside which has been flipped up and it's out there for everybody to see, and we never leave them alone. But most of all, what I'm hopeful is that people like you are showing up for gun violence prevention. And like I said, it doesn't take a lot. But when we get to this repeal of this law on the referendum in 2026, you're going to be seeing a lot of action, and you're going to be thinking, oh, it's 2024, what are they doing? Well, we've all seen that the more you tell somebody something, the more they believe it. So you're going to see a lot of education now on what that law was, because I think a lot of people don't even know it passed. And so you'll see a lot of education dribbling down about what's on there and why it was such a good law. So I thank you for having us. I mean, it's heartwarming because, you know, for a long time, nobody wanted to see us, nobody wanted to touch us, nobody wanted anything to do with us. And now it's like I'm speaking 5 engagements this month, so it's cool, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
Please rise as you are able and join in the singing of hymn number 399 in your great hymnal, Divine and Faithful.
So this is a lovely round that Glenn is going to teach us.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree will live in peace and unafraid. Sorry.
So let's try that together.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid.
Repeat that.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid.
And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more.
And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more.
Beautiful. So now let's sing the whole thing together and then we'll see if we can pull it off as a round. I will be sort of representing your group and they will be leading your group, okay? All together, here we go.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. So let's start one. Neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And if the plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And if the plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more.
And into plowshares
Turn